I need to get out of here. I was pretty much looking for any excuse to run away. I took the chance, one-way ticket, one suitcase, one guitar, 5,000 Thais, 100 Japanese, and I'm the only non-Asian at the company.
So you're dealing with Japanese culture and then Thai culture, I'd imagine.
What's the story, everybody? Pete here from Thairish Times. Hope you're doing well. At this stage, you know the drill. You know what's going on. We have an interview for you today. Let me take you back a couple of weeks to the interview I did with John Canton. Okay, so John spoke about the challenges that he faces living in rural Thailand. He also said that Thailand hasn't given him what he wants out of life. Fast forward a couple of weeks, I get this email from the guest I'm interviewing today. His name is Logan, and he said, hold on a second, Thailand has given me what I want out of life, and I want to share that story with your subscribers. So Logan, in this interview, he's going to tell his whole Thailand story. He works for a massive Japanese company based in Thailand, and he believes that he can provide some value for anyone that's considering moving to Thailand, maybe looking for a long-term career in Thailand. Anyone that wants to understand Thai culture more, anyone who wants to understand what's it actually like working with Thai people, as well as understanding Japanese business culture, which always fascinated me as well. We got lots of stuff to cover in this interview. Let's get straight into it. Hope you enjoy. Leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you thought about it. Hit that like button. Subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Whoa, that's a lot of talking. Right, let's get into it.
Okay, Logan, so thank you very much for coming on the show here. I'm excited to hear what you have to say. So tell everybody where you're from.
I'm from Sydney, Australia. If you don't know much about Sydney, Australia, I'd probably compare it to living in Sydney, Australia, something like dating a Russian girl. Drop dead gorgeous, but very pretentious and very boring. It's not a great place to grow up, apart from the safety aspects.
But you're not in Sydney now. Tell us where you are, because I can see a beach in the background.
I'm in what's called Bang San. So it's pretty much smack bang between Bangkok and Pattaya, 1 hour each way.
You're living and working in Thailand. Tell us, how long have you been living in Thailand for?
I just celebrated 10 years here, actually. Yeah. So I moved here pretty much on 30, now 40. So yeah, 10 years all up.
And what do you do for work? Because you do something quite unique or interesting or not normal, not per se for a foreigner to do in Thailand.
Yeah, so I work for a Japanese multinational company. So I worked for them in Australia for a decade before I moved here. And I transferred, I'll go into detail soon, but yeah, I came over here and now I work for the company located in Thailand. And 5,000 Thais, 100 Japanese, a handful of Singaporeans, Vietnamese, Chinese, and I'm the only non-Asian at the company. So there's around about 5,500 people, and yeah, I'm the only European background.
Now, I know you don't want to name the company, but I'm guessing it's car manufacturing industry.
No, it is manufacturing industry, but it's not cars.
Okay.
Yeah. So there is the vast majority of the car manufacturing industry is located in Rayong, but I'm located in Amata City. And Rayong, you'll actually get a lot of flungs down there. Where I'm at in Chonburi City, it's all Japanese companies or Thai companies. So very rarely do you see another flung.
Why did you transfer and how did you transfer?
So that's two questions, and both have pretty big answers. So the how, why, or how I ended up in Thailand. I'd been working for the company for 10 years, and by that stage it was around about 2013. So living in Sydney at that stage, you were already starting to see the signs that it was going to be difficult to be able to actually get ahead in life. I'm what you would consider an older millennial, and if you watch anything about the cost of living crisis for millennials, you're starting to see a huge amount of videos coming out talking about how it's difficult to either buy property, get married, or afford to have kids. And they're the three goals that most people generally aim for in life. It's what we were raised on, typically to aim for. But I knew back then that the writing was on the wall in my situation. So I ended up speaking with my best friend one night, and we came up with the idea of saying, okay, let's get out of here. Let's stop procrastinating about it. And his idea was he was going to move to Japan. My idea was I was going to move to Thailand. His reckoning was he wanted to move to the Japanese forest and basically just, spend his days making furniture on his own, whereas I was like, oh, I have to work. So Thai people are extremely nice. I think it's going to be much easier to make friends in Thailand than it would be in Japan. Unfortunately, that was the last conversation I had with my friend because he ended up killing himself next week. So that kind of put a rocket up my ass to basically say, like, okay, am I going to end up in a similar situation? You don't assess your own mental state clearly in that, under those circumstances. So I did rush into the idea of pushing to move to Thailand. And I spoke to my company about it. And I said, Japanese company, we only transfer Japanese staff. But if you do move to Thailand and apply at the company locally, you will get hired. Now, if you heard the idea that you could move to another company and a job was, if or maybe, most people would say, I'm not doing it. But I think in that emotional state that I was in, I kind of went, I need to get out of here. I was pretty much looking for any excuse to run away, if I'm being honest. So whether it was going to be 3 months or forever, I took the chance, one-way ticket, one suitcase, one guitar, and straight to Savannah. And when I got here, everything worked out fine. I ended up speaking to the company. They set up the interview very quickly. And because of the process of getting the work permit organized and being the first English speaker to work for the company, it ended up taking around about 3 months. So I pretty much had a 3-month holiday in Bangkok before I started working my company. So it let me get out a lot of those, YOLO party things that a lot of people want to do in Thailand before I settled down to the grind here.
Man, that is super interesting. What is it like to be the only non-Asian person in a company of 5,500?
There's definitely pros and cons. Pros can be things like one of the best things actually is that Thai people are completely out of the scope of the politics of what's taking place in the West. So you kind of avoid that BS conversation at all times. Nobody can talk to you about it. You can't talk to them about it because they don't know anything. So it means that you can just avoid that aggravating conversation with people and just, focus on your work and then focus on your personal life. You don't have to worry about the political conversations, religious conversations, anything like that. Another positive is that because I'm the only Palang, it means that if I make mistakes, if I do something awkward, if I do something that's not good in Thai culture, people will just look at it and say, like, that must be Palang culture. It's not him individually, it must be Palang culture. But 50% of the time, it is just me stuffing up, not understanding the culture, reacting in ways that I shouldn't. So that's a benefit in the fact that I don't cop the blame individually. They just look at it like, that must be how all Palangs act in that situation because they have no relativity of any other person to compare it to. Other positives are you're a novelty. So there's, for example, even the Japanese are into diversity nowadays. So I'll get pulled out of work to stand behind the president during a worldwide conference just to, look, there's a foreigner, a European guy. So yeah, we're a global diverse company with all different types of people everywhere. You get involved in all different types of stuff as well. Can be interesting because I'll get pulled out of work to do marketing material for the company. And then in Thailand, when they hire people based on like you finish university and then there will be a huge orientation, like a market day where all the big companies will come in and sell themselves to the graduates and, like, come work for us, similar to Japan. And so that marketing material will get distributed to people and they'll see my company and say, oh, well, there's Palangs working there. I might be able to learn English. Seems like a good place to go. Then they come to the company and they're like, they lied to us. There's only one person here.
So have you had to adapt to the cultural differences then? Because I'd imagine it's like so you're dealing with Japanese culture and then Thai culture, I'd imagine.
Yeah, and it's Japanese business culture mixed with Thai business culture. And above me and below me, I have both Japanese and Thai staff. So it can be really difficult to want to do what is good for the Japanese business side of things because that will annoy the Thai staff. And if you want to do what's good for the Thai staff, that'll annoy the Japanese because it just it conflicts with their business style. So it's like working for the government. I feel the bureaucracy of it means that, especially you've interviewed Dr. Larry Persons, so you've read I think the Way Ties Lead, and in a lot of that book, there's a lot of information about how it can be difficult to criticize Thai people in the workplace. Constructive criticism is not as simple as we're accustomed to. Like, here's a positive, then a negative. You basically have to be tiptoe on eggshells with everything you say with Thai staff, and the Japanese have not mastered that yet. So a lot of the times, the Thai staff will be treated like process workers. They're not put up to their potential because the Japanese use an attitude of, oh, well, if you want something done right, just do it yourself. So they put heaps of pressure on themselves and do 5, 6 times as much work as they should because it's too difficult to explain to the Thai staff, or they don't want to deal with the issues of trying to communicate it to the Thai staff and they can't understand what people are taught, what they're actually saying. There's also an issue where if Thai people don't understand what you're saying, may be aware of this, they kind of just nod and smile. And then you think like, okay, so you understand? And then the moment you walk out the door, they're like, "My culture to sing," like they don't understand anything. And it just, yeah, they're afraid to actually say that they didn't understand anything because they didn't want to look bad in front of their superior. So yeah, it's like working for the government.
Logan, can you just move the camera a little bit? Because see the sun is setting there and it's just flashing on the yeah, trying to get you to block it. Okay, that looks good there. Perfect.
For the next one.
So yeah, Japanese culture or business culture always kind of fascinated me. Is it true that the Japanese staff will not go home until they see the manager leave first?
In Japan, that's true. In Thailand, they operate differently. So what you'll find is when Japanese businessmen leave the country to work for their companies outside, they are so much happier because the pressure is reduced dramatically. For example, at my work, within my division, there's, I think, around about 5 Japanese staff. And sometimes they'll wait for the manager to go home, but 90% of the time, they'll be like, it's 5:45, I'm out for work, don't care. Yeah, and they kind of adjust to that because the senior managers of the senior managers are not there. So everybody's Japanese business is very old school. It seems to be stuck in a 1980s, like outlook, hasn't updated since then. So a lot of those people who were, introducing those business ethics in the 1980s are not there anymore. Sorry, they're running the show. But if they're not in the country, then the 50-year-old manager, the 40-year-old manager are like, stuck with some, I'm out of here. So the biggest difference in Japanese culture that I find difficult to understand is that Japanese people don't have, they're not a very religious country or society, but they seem to morph that religious devotion to the business. So they will die for their manager. They will take a bullet for their manager.
So basically their job is the whole focus of their lives. Would it be fair to say that? Like they're really invested in their job.
If they're in Japan. So yeah, just to clarify, if they're in Japan, but if they're here, there's much less pressure. To maybe Western workers, it still feels, appears to be high pressure, but from their perspective, they are as happy as a pig in mud.
How about you then? You work quite a long week. Is that right?
I don't think so. It's difficult to. I can't remember what it was like working in Australia anymore compared to here. 8 a.m. to 5:45, 5 days a week. OT or overtime can be consistent, but it doesn't really feel like much because everybody around you is doing it. No questions. You've got people who will come in Saturday and Sunday every day of the month without question. People who will do overtime every single day without question. So if I'm working 5 days a week, 8 a.m. to 5:45, and only working overtime once every 2 weeks, I feel lazy compared to the rest of the staff.
Do you feel there's pressure on you to work this overtime because everyone else is doing it?
I mentioned previously about being a Palung, and that they look at it like, oh, that must be Palung culture. And I have done as much as I possibly can to instill the idea that Palungs don't work as hard as Thais. Palungs don't work as hard as Japanese.
No, it's not about working hard. It's about working clever. That's what we say over here.
Yeah. It's difficult to translate that because Japanese business reports to people who work the longest, not the hardest. And yeah, if you're at your desk 24 hours a day, you're the best worker in the world. If you're spending 23 hours a day on your phone, you're still the best worker in the world because you're there. Our bonuses are based on attendance. So a lot of people, pay attention to that and will not take sick days ever. Or, we had an award where you would get, I think it was 200,000 baht of gold if you worked for 10 years without ever taking a sick day.
Wow. And how about you? Do you feel there's opportunities and growth in is there a career path for you being the only Falang in the company?
I've been waiting for the day that someone comes up to me and says, oh, did you know that R&D or QC has hired another Falang as well? I'm surprised it hasn't happened yet because the company wants to increase the English skill level, which is absolutely terrible. They want to increase the English skill level. They want to access the fact that we're a multinational company. So I spend the vast majority of my time dealing with Singapore, Malaysia, Vietnam, Thailand internally, Australia, New Zealand, America, Europe, the Middle East. We've got to communicate in English with these countries. And because I'm one of the only English speakers, so I'm the only native English speaker, but there's a couple of moderate English speakers, means that there's a restriction on who can actually communicate with people, a complete restriction. So they want to improve that aspect of the business, but they're slow, very, very slow. Japanese businesses, if there's an example, a perfect word to summarize them, I'd say slow at doing things.
So you think then it might take time for you to move up? I'm just trying to gauge, because you are the only Farang in the company, I'd imagine that it might be difficult to be placed in certain positions.
Not particularly. So in my company, I'm between Thai people and Japanese and Thai. The political divides is the issue. So the Japanese speak the Japanese. If you're at a company, you generally have someone who's superior to you that you would have a personal relationship with, and they would feed you information, and it would give you feedback on what not to do, what to do, where the company is going, what's going to look good for you in order to improve your career, etc. But Thais stick with Thais, Japanese stick with Japanese. So I'm on my own. So that's the issue that I have. I don't know what is actually going on politically at the company at all times. And yeah, those relationships matter, whether it's an American company or a Japanese company. You've got to have good relationships with your senior management. And yeah, I'm outside of that. But I'm because of my English skills and the necessity of it in the business, it means that I'm involved in so much that every person knows who I am in the business because I'm involved in so many aspects of it.
How about language skills? Do you speak Japanese and Thai?
Not at all. Not at all. Don't speak any Japanese apart from like, ohayou gozaimasu and arigato. My Thai is bad. One of the issues that I have is I'm so jealous of people who come here and speak fluent Thai, especially the Mormons that have the training schools before they come here. When I got the job at the company, they said, considering that you're the first native English speaker at the company, what we want from you is to use your English as much as possible. So whenever you're having conversations with people, speak English so that they're learning and hearing you. Out of the 4 key things like reading, writing, listening, speaking, listening is always the most difficult when learning a new language. And they want me to be, like rather than hearing the Thai, good morning, please to sit down type of accent, they want the full native accent type of thing going throughout the company through me.
So the next question is about your salary. Now, I don't expect you to answer this directly up front, but obviously as an interviewer, I would love if you did, because people want to know that kind of stuff. But is your salary livable? Can you prosper on it? Can you build for the future, or are you just living month to month? Is it a good salary?
Yeah, I never, after a bad experience when I first came here, which was a lot of naivety on my behalf, not understanding the country and how things operate here. I don't tell anybody my salary anymore. It started, so when I first moved here, I didn't know that the only type of work or the majority of work that Palungs could get here was teaching English. I didn't know the levels of salaries that people had. And at that stage, I was hanging out with a lot of teachers. And because I was not working yet, I was drinking nearly every night. One night, one of them said to me, like, you never work, so what are you doing here? And I told them about my job that I've got coming up. And one of them casually asked, what's your salary? And I told them without thinking. I was excited. I was happy. And immediately, they kind of just went like, oh. And they never spoke to me again. And it's something that you've got to learn or understand about Thailand. When you're in your own country, you gravitate to people with the same socioeconomic background as you. It's just the way it works. It's like magnetism. But when you come here, you feel like a complete douchebag if you're talking about whether you're going to buy a BMW or a Mercedes when the person that you may be talking with can't afford healthcare. So it's best to just shut up and just like listen to people rather than talking about yourself.
It comes across then it's quite a Western salary then, is it? Competitive Western salary.
It's not the same. So I mentioned that I was hired locally. I wasn't a transfer. So the expat packages that the Japanese get are insane. For example, the guy underneath me is a Japanese guy, and he is living in a 200,000 baht studio apartment. I call it studio, but it's an apartment, 200,000 baht a month. He has a 24/7 driver. He gets paid a huge salary in Japanese, a huge salary in Thai, and everything is taken care of. Once he's paid all his bills for everything that he does, he goes out drinking, restaurants, takes his girlfriend on a holiday, he can just write it up, hand it over to the company, and they will refund all of that because every expense that he does here is covered. So compared to that, no way am I on a salary similar to that. But the salary is good enough to be able to live a very decent life here and afford the things that are becoming much more difficult to afford in the West.
So you're able to achieve the buying a home, car, you're able to have a good standard of living then.
First of all, as you mentioned at the start of this interview, this came about because I responded to you about John's interview. And John's a lovely guy. I follow his YouTube channel, and I think he was just on maybe a bad day that day. But yeah, normally very happy guy, and yeah, I enjoy watching his stuff. But he did mention the idea that maybe Thailand's not the dream that people are looking for. I don't think it's the idea that it's the dream is the problem. We're selling people the wrong dream. When people come to Thailand, especially people under the age of 40, they're looking at the idea of, okay, well, I'm sick of the rat race in my own country, sick of working for companies, working, 8 to 5, not being able to afford a life. I can't get married. I can't have kids. I can't do this. I can't do that. So I'm going to move to Thailand. I'm going to become a digital nomad. I'm going to become an influencer. I'm going to become a crypto king. And I understand it. It makes sense, like in your own country, working in an office, working a white collar job did not provide you with the lifestyle that you expected. So it makes sense that you wouldn't want to come here and do the same thing. It'd be like trading in a Toyota for a Honda, same shit, different smell. But I think that we're actually missing that aspect of selling that aspect to people. If you're a qualified person and you have experience in specific fields, there is work here available, and they would welcome Palungs with open arms. The problem is that a lot of Palungs just, when they're coming here, they're not interested in this type of work. I mean, you've likely heard the story about like the digital nomad who comes here, moves here, before they've even opened their suitcase, they're making videos about how I've moved to Thailand, I'm going to be here for the rest of my life. And then 6 months later, they're booking their ticket home. Didn't work out. They didn't make it. And kudos for trying. Everyone has to try to achieve a dream at least at some point in their life. But don't neglect the idea that you're just going to go back to your own country and end up doing the same type of work that you could be doing here.
But how does a Westerner go about getting a corporate job in Thailand? Because it's not so straightforward. I mean, you were able to do it because you had that 10 years experience in that company, and they're obviously based in Thailand as well. So you had that kind of because they could talk to each other, and Japanese manager in Sydney could call the Japanese manager in Thailand and have a chat about you. You had that in, but what about someone who's just who doesn't have an in?
Yeah, that's definitely something I want to clarify here. Anybody that comes over here and says hard work, determination, and diligence was the reasons that I became successful in Thailand, if they don't mention the word luck, they're full of shit, because luck is so important to actually doing well in Thailand. And I definitely make sure that I that's part of the reason that I was able to achieve here. You mentioned that a lot of it came down to the fact that I worked for a company beforehand, and that's luck. But if I was going to give examples of how people could do it themselves, there's probably around about maybe 6 or 7 key points that I would do if I was, say, stuck in a rut in the Western country, wanted to move to Thailand and, say, start again, aiming for a corporate job. First thing would be start private lessons in Thai immediately. I know that I've said that I don't need to speak Thai for my job, and you won't need to speak Thai if you're working a corporate job, but it makes everything so much easier if you can speak Thai. Next thing would be aesthetics. Aesthetics is so important in Thailand. Your photo has to be on the resume. I did an interview yesterday with a girl, and her resume included her weight. So, yeah, the way that you look, get a haircut, try and lose weight if you can. Keep yourself clean shaven. Wait until you've got the job, I guess. But yeah, try and look, as smart as possible, because in Asia, how you look really matters. Next thing, you want to plan basically a 3 to 6 month job search holiday in Thailand. So if you're able to spend 3 to 6 months in Thailand, it doesn't mean that you're just sitting there looking for work the entire time. You can party it hard on the weekends, travel to islands and things like that. But if you're looking for work Monday to Friday, stay within Bangkok and the Eastern Economic Corridor, which is pretty much between Bangkok and Rayong. so that you're available for interviews or job agencies, and also dropping off your resume at companies that actually have openings. This is something that Palungs might not know, but if you are interested in working at a company, you don't have to wait for an opening. Go to the company, give them your resume, and I'm telling you right now, the amount of companies in Thailand that would be shell-shocked to have Palungs just walk in the door, in a suit, handing over their resume, saying, "I am very interested in working here. Here is my resume. If you have anything available in my specific line of work, I would much, appreciate the opportunity to interview here." They would go bananas for that. We're still a novelty in a lot of areas. If you hang out in Pattaya or Kung Thep or Chiang Mai, I understand that there's Palungs everywhere, but in a lot of these industrial areas, there's not a lot of Palungs. So if you can go to the company and hand over the resume, which would just consist of a one-page resume with your photo on it, your previous experience, your university education, and your university grades. That's all you need to do. Next thing, you've got to set up interviews with advertising job agencies, so that basically once you come over here, you can go straight into the companies in Bangkok, get pre-interviewed or pre-screened for interviews. And the next thing, you want to start changing your LinkedIn profile data over to saying that you're located in Thailand, you're interested in working in Thailand, and reviewing jobsdb.com, because that's the professional website for careers in Thailand. And look for the type of work in your industry, what type of salary you can expect, to get an idea of what you're going to get into if you actually come over here during that time.
That is solid advice there. I'll back up as well what you said about appearance. It is very important how you look in Thailand and Asia as well. I know in the West, it's frowned upon. We don't have our photos on our resumes. You certainly wouldn't have your weight. But you got to be clean shaven. You got to look the part. Cover your tattoos, get a haircut, do what you have to do. But it's the first thing I remember when I first landed in 2010 and finding out appearance is very important. I was shocked, but it is your judge on how you look in Thailand. How about expats? Do you have many expat friends?
Yeah, I'm actually sitting here with an expat friend. But
he's sitting behind the table, is he?
Yeah, but realistically, I have very minimal amount. A lot of my friends are mainly Thai, and there's two reasons for that. One of the first reasons is that if you have a large migrant population in your area where you grew up, you're going to hear local people say the line, "I don't know why they moved here. They all stay together. They don't associate with anyone else." And when I moved here, I was like, okay, well, I don't want to be a hypocrite and just run out and find, Palungs and just cling to them and say, okay, I feel safe and secure around these people. I want to, try and blend in to the community. So what I did is, for the first 6 weeks that I was here, and it was incredibly boring for a lot of the time, but I would go out by myself. I just sit in a bar by myself, drinking, and trying to figure out, how I make friends here. I don't know anyone. I didn't know a soul in the entire town. But by 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, Thais would start drinking. They, start getting a little bit of confidence about themselves. And they just come over to my table and start introducing themselves and saying, "Hi, my name's this. Why are you here? Where do you come from?" The standard typical questions. And over 6 weeks of doing that, I was able to meet probably more people than I've met in the last 10 years of living in Australia in those 6 weeks. And I was able to kind of figure out, I like hanging out with these people. I'm not really, cool with hanging out with these types of people, and just develop my friendship base by that. It didn't hurt that I ended up joining a band, became part of the music scene in the area as well. But another reason, and this is something that I think a lot of Palungs go through in Thailand, is that when I first came here, some of the experiences that I had with meeting other Palungs, when I would run into them was negative. And I started, thinking in my head like, oh, every time I run into a Falang, this happens or they're really rude or they're really arrogant. I just can't deal with this. And I started just like disassociating from the idea of like hanging out with Falangs and just mainly focused on Thais. But what I realized later on was the fact is when you go out in Thailand, the vast majority of time that you meet Falangs, you're meeting Falangs who are drunk. So you're not meeting them at the first time where they're doing a good representation of who they actually are. And the vast majority of foreigners, Falangs that I've met in Thailand, they're incredible people. They're absolutely amazing people. I don't think I've ever met a bad expat where I've walked away when they were sober and said like, oh, they're a prick or they're a jerk or anything like that. There's always some humanity. And a lot of them have incredibly interesting aspects to the background of what brought them here. Retirees, especially, because the retirees generally have a lot of Thailand experience and life experience. And if you sit down and shut up and listen to them, there is a lot of information they can share about living here and just life experience in general.
True. We've had loads of them on the channel. Great life experience. How about YouTube? You kind of dabbled in it. You have a channel or you had a channel and you're interested in it a little bit. Tell us a bit about that.
I dally in and out every once in a while. One of the reasons is because, I mentioned that I've never had an issue with expats in person, but online, they can be brutal. They can be really brutal to, in the Thai expat community. And I'll jump in and then I'll get really self-conscious. I'll be like, no, I don't want to deal with that. I can't deal with that on top of raising two kids that are under 6 and, work and all that stuff. I just run away from it. But I'm definitely interested in the idea of producing something, producing content with a very extroverted, amicable type of, younger guy who's okay to jump into situations with Thais or Falangs. I've got a lot of ideas. There's a lot more potential with the Thai market than there is with the foreigners who are interested in Thailand's market.
Yeah, I mean, it's what, 64 million Thai people versus maybe 1 million foreigners that might be interested in Thailand.
Yeah,
it just shows there's a lot more opportunity if you were going down that route. All right, so if anyone's interested, if you're a YouTuber or you're starting a channel and you're looking for a producer, maybe leave it in the comment section and Logan can be in touch. Joe, you're making me very jealous looking at that view. Been looking at it for the last hour, man.
Yeah, I just thought it's a little bit more interesting than just like a background in my bedroom. So just came out here.
Brilliant background. Perfect, man. I'm just looking out at Banks End Beach and all the Thais on the beach, and oh man, I just want to call Leo. What are you having there? Are you drinking Heineken?
Yeah, drinking Heineken. Bang Sen is not very, it does not have a lot of variability of the types of beers that are on offer.
What about Leo? You drink Leo?
I'm a Sting and Heineken guy.
Okay, I'm a Leo man. Well, listen, man, it's been a pleasure. Let's talk an email and we'll chat again. Maybe we get you on. I'd love to have you on again because I can tell there's just scratched the surface there.
There's a lot of funny stories about being in that type of work environment at my company. Absolutely hysterical. You probably want to hear some of these stories because I would say if you're a liberal person, then everything I said about moving to Thailand, ignore it, because the office culture at my work is in the 1980s. So the stuff that goes on there, it's incredible. I tell my conservative friends back home and their jaw drops at the type of stuff that goes on at my work. Yeah, so I've got a lot of stories.
All right, we'll get into that in the next one then. Enjoy your Saturday evening. Take care of yourself and we'll chat on email.
Thank you very much.
All right, cheers, man. Take it easy. I appreciate it.